Hey everybody, Pastor Charles and Lady Bev. Actually, you know what? I don't even know why I'm saying Pastor. I'm just Charles and this is Bev. Is that cool?
That's cool.
All right. We're going to roll our music. We don't own the rights to this. We don't own the rights to this music.
Playing? Why isn't the music playing?
I don't know, baby.
See, now we got to start again. It's your fault.
Oh, man.
Yay! We don't own the rights to the music.
We sure don't.
Ebony and Ivory.
Live together in perfect harmony, side by side on my piano. What's up, y'all? Artie Blake. What's up? What's up? Thomas. We don't own the rights, and we got a guest.
You picked this song?
She picked this song.
This is a great song.
I had no clue that's so funny.
We got a guest with us.
I love this song. I love it.
We're doing this.
Lift your lighters in there.
Yay! Come on.
What's up? What's up?
Everybody all together now.
Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony, side by side on my piano.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay,
Here we go.
that's enough.
That's the hard end.
Wow. What have I gotten myself into here, people?
No fading. No fading.
So listen, everybody, we are doing our Tuesday Drive Live. And it's Bev and Charles. And guess what? We have a special guest with us tonight.
Yay!
Pastor Keith Walaka.
Woo!
Hello. From the Beacon Resource Center and Riverside Church.
Yep.
So he's rolling with us today. Our subject today is bridging the cultural divide. Bridging the cultural divide. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I can just tell you right out the gate, most of you that are going to be watching and watching this later, that we're not going to fix the world in 10 minutes.
20.
Or 20 minutes. But we're going to do our best to just shed some light
25.
on some of the things that we know could bridge the cultural divide. Now, I will say this to get the conversation started. I have been to Keith's house, and I'm going to use Keith. I'm not going to do the formal pastor thing. I've had dinner with Keith. I've met his kids. I've hung out with his wife. I even hugged her.
Oh my gosh.
I sure did.
Hey, Anthony.
And we've had good conversations, good friendship. We've just been cool.
And Shelly's one of my BFFs.
So
Shell likes you a lot too.
that's
Yes,
right. That's
I love
right.
Shelly.
Yeah.
So that's
Hey,
part.
Shelly, if you're watching.
She probably will watch this. So that's part of the thing that we've done to kind of make some inroads to make a difference, so our neighbors can see us, our churches can see us, we worship together, different things that we do. But that's just part of what it has to be done to really bridge the cultural divide. So I think there's plenty of room for all of us to talk about this. What are some of the things that you guys think would kind of take the edge off of what we're experiencing now in our community and in the world? Yeah. And whoever wants to go first. Pastor Keith, I'll let you go first.
You said you were going to call him Keith.
Yeah, Keith.
yeah.
Hey, I forgot.
What's interesting, one thing, Charles, that I appreciate about you is that, and we started this from the very get-go,
Right.
you let me ask any question I have. You're a safe person for me, and I feel like I've been able to ask you questions as a white man that I've been wanting to asking for a while, and you've given me lots of grace, and as I've asked some, questions, I just didn't know growing up in white suburban America. And when some of the stuff in our country's really hit the fan with shootings and such, I've come to you and asked you questions, got your perspective, and it's been good to be friends,
Yeah, that's the number one.
Yeah, it's not, we don't always talk about race and such, but it's just good to have you as a person I can ask any question to, and
Right.
yeah.
There's no funny business.
Yeah, it's not.
You know you've got a radio voice, right?
Welcome to Tuesday Live. Pastor Charles King and First Lady Bev.
Oh, yeah. Let's drop the first. Let's drop
She's
the
like,
first.
no first lady.
No.
First Lady?
So
Hey, what?
we got
wait,
Jesus.
Jesus. Oh,
Jesus is on here. Jesusa. That's Jesusa.
Oh, okay.
That's the female
Antonio.
Jesus.
Hello, Antonio.
What's up? So, anybody that wants to chime in, anybody that has questions, anybody that wants to participate in the conversation, please drop that information in there. One thing that me and Pastor Keith really have had is just friendship and honest conversation. So I think that's where part of the bridging takes place, is in honest conversation and just being somebody's friend. Pastor Keith doesn't eat everything like I eat. They do different stuff to me. They ride motorcycles. I'm in a boat, you know.
But I ride a boat.
I am going to join them on the motorcycle.
You've not invited me to be in your boat fishing, by the way.
And that will come.
I see all these pictures of you and Charlie fishing. You've never invited me.
I'm going to get a bigger boat, Pastor Keith, because if I
Are you saying I'm too big for your boat as
if I put him in the boat,
what are you trying to
gonna
say?
Be like,
What's interesting also, our sons were friends before you and I were.
That's our sons that
It was
got
our
us all
sons,
together.
Denari and Tommy, were
That's
best
true.
friends. That was part of the.
yeah.
That was it. So what was really, really beautiful, and this is why I was like, I absolutely love. I don't know where I am.
That's fine. Just
You're
stay
in
straight.
Park.
Okay. All right. So what was really, really beautiful was I was outside in the yard waiting for Denari to come home from school, and over walks this white lady with this little white boy. And she's like, hi. And she introduced herself, and she said, well, I wanted to come over because I think Tommy was struggling at school with making friends, I think she said. And she said, you know, he's never really had any friends, but he's come home and he's constantly talking about this boy, Denari, and he wants to hang out with him. He wanted to have a play date. They were in middle school at the time. No, they weren't.
They were young.
They were
They
younger
were
than that.
it was
Yeah.
Marquette, right?
Yeah.
So he wanted to have a play date. So she was like, well, I needed to meet his mom and whatever. She came over and introduced herself.
She really wanted to find out if we were crazy.
Nah.
Hey, tell the truth. I want to know my kids' friends. I want to know their parents.
Yeah. But do you know what? Since I'd been in the country, I had no parent come to me and introduce themselves and say, hey, you know, our children are friends and whatever, and I just wanted to introduce myself. So that was like star number one for me. And then she said, hey, can Denari come over and have a play date and with Tommy? And I was like, yeah, cool. She's like, we just live around the corner. I was like, cool. So they went. I gave it probably about 5-10 minutes. I was like, let me see where they live. I'm just being honest.
Hey, honesty.
Right?
Let's do it.
I was like, let me see. I don't know this woman. What's she on? Where's she taking my child? But it blossomed from there. And then, you know, we found out that both our husbands are pastors, and, you know, we started talking about being a pastor's wife and all that kind of stuff, and the friendship has just blossomed. And we were kind of trying to get these two together.
Yeah, it was weird at first because we were both busy pastors and friends. Like, I got my friends I grew up with, kind of. But we developed that over a few conversations, and I realized after the first conversation, this guy is pretty cool.
And now they see each other more than me and Shelly do.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
We do, yeah.
Yes, we do.
But hey, we're still cool.
Yep. So
it was funny. A couple years ago, you and Denari stopped by my church. I think for a night of worship or something in the evening time.
Yep.
And Denari was sitting with Tommy, and Denari leaned over to Tommy and said, "Tommy, this is a white church." And Tommy went, "No, it's not." Denari's like, "Yeah, it is." And I was like, "No, there's a black person here, black person here." And then Tommy went to my wife and said, "Hey, Mom, are we a white church?" And my wife went, "Yeah." I mean, it's predominantly, it's just funny to hear, like, my son didn't even think about in those terms, right? Just,
it's true.
Our kids are growing up in a very different world. I mean,
totally different.
Obviously, they absolutely see it and they understand it. I mean, and some things have not changed for sure, but it's interesting to see, like, how much more natural they are with this stuff than we are.
It's a totally different world than what I grew up in, too, because I can say this. When I was a kid, my parents moved into a predominantly white neighborhood, and in the 80s, well, that wasn't really like the big thing to do. Early 80s, I'd say 79, 80. So when we were playing out in the yard, we had a car swerve. I mean, he came right in our yard, tried to run up on us. We had to run back almost to the house to stop from getting hit by this guy. But that's because during that time, a black family in an all-white neighborhood probably didn't equal up to let's go take them a piece of cake and welcome them to the neighborhood. It was a totally different vibe. So because I experienced stuff like that, I grew up thinking, man, you know, all white people, they want to hurt me, they want to do something to me. And I realized real quick going to Holy Cross School.
You went to Holy Cross?
I went to Holy Cross, man. I learned real quick at Holy Cross School, everybody's not trying to hurt you. Everybody's not trying to do something underhanded. I met some of the coolest people growing up in that school, and they ended up coming to my house. We had a lot of fun. Jessica. We did a lot of cool stuff. So I learned very early that some people are just ignorant. How does ignorance play into having all the division? How does ignorance really play into it? Because I think most of us don't experience certain things because we may be ignorant, or we are culturally biased, or we don't know to even try.
Well, the problem now is with things like Facebook, you can self-select what you even want to hear. So, I mean, it's now an echo chamber to where the fact is, if I know my narrative, I can just be surrounded by my narrative, be it Fox News or be it whatever.
Yeah.
And the problem then is you're less exposed to
everything
viewpoints.
else.
And so actually, I wonder with all the stuff we have going on nowadays, if it's even going to get worse because people aren't going to be exposed to other things.
Man, you are kidding. It's kind of sad too to think that we are limited in how we engage because we have personal preferences. And it was a time when Facebook was wide open. If I didn't like you, I'd have to delete you. I couldn't block you or blind you, you know, put everything off to the side. Now I can pick and choose who I want to engage with socially, or social media, or whatever the case may be. And it limits my exposure to understanding life. And a lot of things you'll miss out.
Hey, Shelly, there's Shelly!
Woo! Your girl's over here!
Do not rewind to hear all the other stories we talked about.
Rewind
Do
it!
not rewind it!
Rewind
Do not rewind it, babe! What am I? And Tommy, if you're watching, do not rewind it, Tommy!
Man, that's cool. But I think there's so many ways that we could break down the typical stereotypes, you know, with all the things that are happening. I did this 2 years ago with Minister Levi, with Men's Talk, a group that I'm a part of. We brought a whole bunch of the South Bend policemen to a picnic, and we sat down and we ate together. We allowed the children that are part of, you know, the organization, their families, everybody sat at tables together, and we had a picnic in the park. I personally have had bad experience with police officers, but I used to have a Lincoln Navigator, like totally stupid. I was 20 years old, I had a Lincoln Navigator, and a $50,000 truck working at Martin's doesn't really add up to a logical purchase.
Not mathematics there, buddy.
So in that situation, not every time, but a lot of times that I went to Mishawaka, I would get pulled over. Young boy driving this Navigator, people wanted to know what the deal was. So when I get pulled over, I had a couple bad experiences, but needless to say, by sitting down, having lunch with picnic with the police officers, finding out how they think, how things work for them, I realized that I need to have more dialogue with them and bring more people to that table so they can understand how their thoughts are and the rationale. Now, does that mean everybody's gonna be a good cop? No, you're gonna have some bad apples in every situation, but if you kind of know how things work overall, you can kind of gauge things a little bit differently. Now, needless to say, I got pulled over in Mishawaka a lot because I was driving too fast, or I had my seat down so far I was like where Keith is sitting. So you couldn't even see me in the truck. They probably thought I had one of the first Google cars or something.
But now also, I mean, you talk about you so you're having lunch with those cops, and kind of was good to humanize people. So I remember sitting in my church, hearing some people talk, and after one of the many shootings we've had,
hey Heather,
and one of my white church members asked one of my African American church members, "Have you ever been pulled over just for being black? Driving while black?" He asked that question, and my church member, the African American, said, not in Indiana, but definitely Kentucky. But then I also, you know, him and I, we went to a Travis Green concert together and got 4 hours in the car each way. And then he opened up a little bit more to me, though.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. He didn't feel comfortable sharing the extent of how many times he's been pulled over, those kind of things. So it's even interesting then, like, even in my church, I mean, and it's a safe place, but he wasn't able to be fully open with what he's been through. And that was just kind of heartbreaking to me, you know? I mean, it's interesting.
It is true, though. And I'll say this, in our cultural divide and the things that divide us, you know, we can harp on those things all day. But what I found out as a black man in America is that I have to know how to fit in various cultures. I have to be able to fit in a lot of different cultural places, and I have to learn how to turn this on or turn that on or turn it off to be able to be just all encompassing. Because what happens if you don't know how to have those conversations and to move in those different environments, you do become limited. Now, I'll say this though, when I bring people from another culture into my environment, I revert and they're like, whoa, you can't be that black, you know?
Oh man.
But it's that black. I am black. I invited Keith to my house and he ate jerk chicken.
And he loved it.
And he liked it.
It's interesting though, I mean, like, because I'd have never had to do that.
Yeah.
I've never had to do that. I mean, being in majority culture. It was interesting. I was at this justice conference in Chicago, and there's a breakout session. This lady was doing an amazing job moderating, and she said, "Hey, let's all just around 50 to 100 people in the room." She goes, "Hey, let's just, it's a safe thing. Feel free to say whatever you want, but how would you describe black culture?" Everyone's quiet. He says, "No, seriously. What's either stereotypes or just, you know?" And people say, you know, soul food. Someone said, and then someone else said, you know, someone jokes that, you know, late a lot. And, you know, it was and people were sharing that. And it's what's Hispanic culture, and it's very familial, and it's explained, you know, the stereotypes of Spanish culture, of Hispanic culture. And then she said, "What about white culture?" And everyone's quiet. It's interesting, and no one really was able to put their finger on it. How would you describe? And then she really pushed. And we started coming up with things, but for someone like myself, when you grow up and you exist in majority culture, you don't have to do what you described there.
Man,
you're assuming
it's true.
Normal is, you know, white culture. It was a fascinating conversation we had.
You know what else was fascinating for me was when I got together with Shelley and a group of women to do the remember we were doing Be the Bridge?
Oh, Be the Bridge.
That was such a good conversation. So guys, it was like a 10-week conversation. It was a guided conversation, but the whole point of the group was that we had to have diversity within the group to have the conversation. So I was the only black female. There were 3 white ladies. There was a lady who was Korean and one who was from Peru. And so we had this conversation, and one of the things that came up was I said, maybe from my perspective, being black and British and not black American, I have a different viewpoint or outlook compared to somebody who was in the group who would have been a black American female, because I see things different, because I come from a very multicultural society and country, and I view things a little bit different. Not that there isn't racism and all of that there, but so anyway, one of the things that came up was because we were talking about bridging the gap as far as worship, being in church, because Sunday is one of the most segregated days of the week. Somebody's saying something.
Yeah, I can read it.
What's that?
I'll let you finish your statement.
That was talking about cops. Bridging the gap in church. And a black lady had said to one of the white ladies in the group, "Can we just not have our day? Can we just not have a day to ourselves?" And I was like, what?
Wow.
Can we just not have a day? Like, I just want to be able to go to a church that's all black and just be myself. Because just like you were saying before, we are forever conforming.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was listening to a study once. They said in a predominantly white culture, we like diversity up to around 20%.
Yeah.
I mean, they said that white people are comfortable up to around 20%. We can stretch to 40, but around 40%, we feel very uncomfortable. It's interesting you say that, right? Because we don't have that experience because in majority culture, you don't have to feel.
It's true. That is true. I'll say this: black pastor, white church. You rarely. It's not that it doesn't happen. It's a rare occurrence. Or black pastor, very diverse congregation. It's not that it is not happening. It is happening. But you really have to be a different type of pastor in a different environment to make that happen. There's just like if you really get down to it, if somebody's going to be a real edgy black guy, and then you look in the audience and you're probably going to see that personality in the audience. So you have certain pastors that can fit that mold, that can do that. But I think it's a level of comfortability in the congregation, and that has not been the situation in South Bend.
We had that conversation in our group, and what I came up with is going back to slavery, possibly, or even before. It's a mindset that white is better, right?
Or white is normal.
Or white. I would prefer, right? The thought process. I would prefer to be led by a white pastor than from a black one, because I don't think you have leadership. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do get what she's saying. I'm gonna let Keith.
Yeah, no, I just I wonder how many people can even articulate that versus it's deep rooted. They can't articulate that's what they're thinking, but that's what they're thinking. I don't know how many
it's a
people
subconscious thing,
right?
So I can go to your church, right? I can go to your church, and it may not be, and it's no disrespect, it may not be a thing where I'm like, I'll go every week, right? But I can go and I can fit in, and I'm cool, right? Yeah. I can go to a Hispanic church, and I can go and I can fit in. But then you have, here's the road.
Oh God, help us, Lord. Help us, God.
It was a very quick maneuver.
Help us, Lord. I like my life.
Right? But then you get other cultures coming to a predominantly black church, and it's like we feel the need to have to.
Feel the need to switch.
But then you get the vibe of it's too loud, or it's too, and so we feel like we have to accommodate.
I'll tell you this: when Pastor Keith's church and our church had service together, I did me. So at the beginning of the service, I sung my regular song. I spoke in tongues like I normally would. We did just what we normally do, and he did the same thing. So that's the level of bringing the bridge that we have to be open to.
But babe, if you're going to be completely honest, when we do come together and we have our joint services, our congregation,
I think our congregation does adapt, though.
Yeah, they're not as boisterous as they normally would be.
Yeah, they do adapt. Not. And next time Pastor Keith and Riverside come, we're going to tell them, y'all be black today.
We've been very intentional at my church because, I mean, for South Bend, we're diverse.
Yes, we are. Yes, you are.
We sing songs by not just the same four white men. And a lot of white churches, there's four white men. Chris Tomlin, David Crowder, Matt Redmond. Four people write all the songs. And so
it's true.
We're very intentional. We do sing Travis Green and William McDowell.
Hey, Reggie.
So we have the songs that we can also come together, because music's a beautiful thing. And
yes, it is.
That's right.
But I do remember, and I mean, give me some grace as I share this, but I was part of a different church in South Bend, a very large church. We did a combined worship with another very large, predominantly African-American church. And that church came to our Mishawaka facility 2 times. And they were me before I even came on staff. And as when this church came, my predominantly white congregation was very expressive, and they loved it. And then it was time to come to South Bend and worship at their building. And people said, well, we don't really want to go over there.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the things that was it sealed the deal for me to actually plant a church here in South Bend. It was, right. I don't think they even realized the racism around it, but it was pretty heartbreaking to hear. And then one of the elders, I I see him right now. He says, you know, I just love how those people worship. He said those people, and it was, and it was more of like, even as in, and they really know how to worship. It's like those people, and it was almost an entertainment kind of thing. And it was just like,
it sickened you.
I gotta get out of here because this is just not
what you were
not good for my kids. And it wasn't. I don't think it was by no means malicious. It was just. But it was clearly racist. I mean,
yeah, and you know there is those secret things that we have to deal with, and I'll applaud this brother right here because if he can make that type of transition, that's bridging the cultural divide.
Hey, Miss Pearl.
Because stuff like that is what's needed. Now we got a couple questions that we got to kind of hit real quick.
What are these questions?
Let's see. We got one that was talking about. All cops aren't bad. Okay, here it is.
Okay, they're good
and bad cops. I started being comfortable. Can you read that, Babe Mize?
I started being comfortable with cops. This is by Shonda. Shonda Cares. There are good and bad cops. I started being comfortable with cops when one offered to take me home after a previous car stopped on me.
Ooh, that's good. That's cool. You know, all cops aren't bad. I got it.
Okay.
All cops aren't bad. There's some good ones out there. So we're glad that you had that experience. I love this. It says, she said stereotypical. Okay, we got that one. And then
that was it, I think.
It says the four white men that do the songs. But it's the truth, though. You know,
it's the truth. And again, in majority culture, it's easy to just, that's what you hear. That's so we've had to be very intentional in my church to actually tell my worship leader we have to have one song by a dead person. And then one song by a non-white man. And so every week, because some of these songs just like they've been out for 2 years. Are they going to last? Well, some of these songs will last for 300, 400 years.
That's true.
That means they're probably worth singing again.
And the hymns are good,
They're
man.
good songs,
They're
right?
good songs.
And so I tell my worship leader, you know, one dead person and one, and it's usually an African American composer of a song. So we just want to make sure that we're listening to different music.
Yep. So you guys see that Ebony and Ivory have come together in perfect harmony.
But for me, I think for me, I've always, actually no, I'm not going to lie and say I've always been that way, because if you really hear my story, I was very power to the people.
She was the Nation of Islam.
No, I was not. I was absolutely, don't listen to them. I was not. But I've read up on Black history, and it incensed me to the point where I began, just to be honest, I began to hate. I really began to hate. And I remember my mum sitting me down and talking to me and saying, you just can't. We've got white in our family. They've married into, you know, family members have married white family members. You cannot be like this, and you will make yourself sick. And I was making myself sick, and I had to change my thought process. And thank God, I mean, I changed even before I got saved, but when I got saved, it really solidified that we need to love each other, and we need to find some common ground. One of the things that I mentioned last week, that I do not like the word race. Different races. I don't like that, because we are the human race.
That's true.
Yes, we culturally are different, but we are the human race, and I believe that word is used to divide us.
That's true. So look, we knew we weren't going to fix the world tonight, but we wanted to start a conversation about it. So you guys can continue this conversation in the timeline. We'll respond to any questions, anything like that you have. Do me a favor, share this video, put a lot of hearts and likes on it, and put it out there to the world so the conversation can go across the...
And we're going to have more conversations with you.
Yeah, we like Pastor Keith. Yeah. So we're going to do more of that. So we thank God for Pastor Keith. Here's what we do every week. I want you to go to Tuesday Drive Live on Facebook and go ahead and like that page. I want you to go to YouTube Tuesday Drive Live and like that, subscribe to that page. So do that for me today when you get off this broadcast. Go on there and subscribe to those things. Also, I want to invite you to 2 churches. I'm going to invite you to Greater St. Matthew Church. We start at 11:15 every Sunday at 2705 Marquette Boulevard. And I'm going to invite you today to my homie's church, to my friend Pastor Keith Walaka. The Beacon Resource Center and Riverside Church. The address is, I'm not that smart. Tell me.
By the airport.
Right across
The
from
old
the
Beacon
airport.
Bowl.
That's right. You can't miss it. So check his church out. Diversify his church. Black people, hood, stand up. No.
I take no responsibility. That's what Charles King says.
But yeah, so check us out. Let's do something different this Sunday. We love y'all. We're going to go out on this little medley. And
You know you love it. You know you love it. Come on, let's rock. Ebony and Ivory.
Wow.
See the outro.
Woo, Ebony.
Oh no, they haven't started yet. Yes, they are. Ebony,
I don't know her. Oh, man.
Okay.
So
Okay,
thanks,
we're gonna
y'all.
fade it.
Thanks for checking us out. We really do appreciate it. Our time is up. We'll be back next Tuesday. Drive
Drive
live.
live.
Share the video, please.
Love you guys.
Thanks. God bless.